Today is March 6th, 2019. In my last video, I discussed how to start peppers, or any seeds really, using the paper towel method. In this one, we are going to have a bit of an update. And we're going to see how to transplant these into peat pods, or jiffy pots as some people might know them as. As you can see, that these were planted on the 24th, or started on the 24th, and they are looking ready to rock and roll, I would say. Here's another. These are the Turkish snake peppers. These were started on the 25th. So that makes what, 9 or 10 days worth of sprouting time. They were kept in this box, which runs at about 27 or 28 degrees Celsius. Obviously there's some light. I don't think the light is strictly required. I think just the temperature is. However, once they begin to put out leaves, like you can see is happening here, once they begin to put out leaves, they're gonna want to start to photosynthesize. And so I figure the light can't hurt. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video here and get set up, and we're gonna see what the transplanting is all about. All right. So, we are going to transplant our sprouts into some different methods. So first of all, I have these containers, which are just basically upcycled or recycled food containers. These things come from Swiss Chalet. They've got a nice dome on them. You can buy like Jiffy Pod kits and things like that have a nice lid on them. These ones fit nice and secure, so I actually like these better. Next, I like to use these Jiffy Pods. Now I've already expanded all of my Jiffy Pods. They're basically peat or coir, and they start out like a little pellet, and then you soak them in some tepid water and they expand like this. Alright, so next up, we're going to open up these bad boys. Now, first of all, if you haven't seen my previous video about setting these up, it's a good idea to go and watch that. I think it's 9 minutes long. And I discuss a few different things. One of them is wearing gloves and using clean paper towels. Now, this is a great example of why we do that, because even using fairly clean paper towels and gloves, I was a little on the sloppy side. And as you can see, I've got some mold growing. Also, you'll note that I mentioned how you want to have them offset to make them easier to get apart. If these were perfectly lined up, it's like this corner, it's kind of hard to get the paper towels apart. Sometimes, depending on the kind of paper towel you use, these roots will burrow into the layers. So if you've got multiply, 3 or 4 layers of thin paper towel, these roots can burrow into that and make the next step kind of a pain in the butt. There's an example. Perfect. That right there is an example of the mold killing the seed. Some of the seeds will, they'll grow through that anyway. But obviously, you're going to have some that die. So if you want to have good paper towel method, good results, I recommend, making sure that everything is clean, you've washed your hands, maybe wear gloves, use brand new paper towels, make sure the table you're working on is clean, and so on. So step 1 is to expand your Jiffy Pods. You want to make sure that they're about room temperature afterwards, not too hot, not too cold. And you're going to want to use the back of a Sharpie or something similar. Jab that bad boy in there. Depending on which sprout we put in here, we may want to go deeper or shallower based on how much root there is. Alright, so I went all the way to the bottom of that thing. I can feel the pen at the bottom there. So that's a nice big wide space. Bigger, wider spaces are better. Next, I'll just shift that over here. I'm going to take one of my sprouts, like let's say this one here, and I'm going to very carefully see if I can lift it up. You don't want to damage the roots. Sometimes they'll recover if you do damage the roots, but if you make a mess of the root, then you'll just kill the sprout. Now you take that bad boy and you just jam that in there. You want to make sure that the soil goes right up to the base of the root, where it becomes part of the stalk, but you don't want to bury a whole lot of the stalk itself. It's best if you have it sort of protruding just like that. All right, and that is pretty much done skis for that one. You want to make sure they stay moist. You're going to put that in there, maybe put a little bit of water in the base, put your lid on that, and then put it in an area with nice bright lights. In my case, I've got a couple of grow lights. I also have some commercial grow lights that I will use, and the lights will be, quite close here. And I usually have a timer set to shut the lights off for about, roughly 7 hours overnight. All right, so another method you can use is you might be one of those folks out there that want to try using the Kratky hydroponic method. So if you are one of those folks out there that like to do hydroponics, this is from a protein powder container, I believe, something like that. I got some net cups, which I ordered online, and I drilled a hole through the top and glued this in with rubber cement around the outside edge. That allows you to be able to pop that off, and it's secure in place there so that once the plant starts to produce, some mass, it doesn't want to fall over. It also allows you access to the nutrients inside, and so this container works quite well. Some folks like to use transparent containers, but then the problem with transparent is it'll encourage algae and things like that to grow inside the nutrients, and so that's less than ideal. So a dark container works great. If you do use a transparent one, I recommend putting a strip of tape down the side and then painting the whole thing, aerosol paint, whatever turns your crank, and then take the tape off, and that'll give you a level indicator. And actually I can show you that right now, hold on. So here's an example of what I was talking about. This is transparent down here, and you can see the water levels down here. So that way I know when to fill it up, even without having to lift it and see how heavy it is. Okay, so let's say you want to do this. Similar procedure. You're going to take one of your rock wool. Again, I bought these online, they were cheap. So I'm going to see if I can get that apart without damaging the root too much. It did burrow into the paper towel a little bit, so I'm just going to be a little bit gentle with it so that I don't tear the tip of the root off. Alright, looks like I tore the tip of the root off anyway. Now this one, I kind of think that it'll probably be okay. So we're going to take that, we're going to stick it into our rock wool. Then I would take that and I would fill this so that the water and nutrients just touches the bottom of this, maybe a millimeter or so deeper, so that the water actually makes contact to the pod, the rock wool pod, and then I would stab that in there. You can throw a couple of more pieces of rock wool around the edges if you want. Once this sprout is taller than this edge by quite a bit, you can then put your expanded clay pellets around there, or whatever you have, even some washed rock around the outside edge, just to sort of hold it in place. And then you're golden. Some folks don't have those little pods, and maybe you started your paper towel method and you forgot to pick up what you need for it, and so all you have are greenhouse plastic pots. So similar story, jab a hole, go down nice and deep. It's okay if you go deeper than the root is on the sprout. So then we'll just take a nice healthy one here. Let's see. I like this one just fine. That's a good one. All right. So we're just going to set that in here, and then we're just going to push the soil down until it makes contact with the root. Now you want it to hold it up, but you also don't want it to be so stiff that the root can't force its way through. So you want it to be secure, but gentle. All right, and so this soil has been dampened. I've preemptively dampened it. It has a little bit of a mixture of some stuff that I had in it last year, so obviously there's a leaf in there. That's That's a lemon leaf. So there's a little bit of last year's material in there. There are pros and cons to using last year's materials. The upside is it's less expensive, obviously, you're reusing things. If you have some compost like I do, it's got plenty of nutrients. The downside is you have a lot of microbial growth going on there, including mold spores. And so under some circumstances you may end up with some mold growth. So maybe I'll make a third video and show an update in a few days. Turkish snake peppers from February 25th. Again, today is March 6th. And so I'll come back in a week or two and see how these did.